Welcome to my story. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe, and your support means the world.
Zara Kamau was 28, bold, and known in Mombasa for asking questions no one else dared to ask. As an investigative journalist living near the busy streets of Old Town in Mombasa, she had built a reputation for exposing corruption. But nothing prepared her for the call she received one humid morning. Her wealthy aunt, Njeri Wamboi, had passed away suddenly. The funeral was set to take place at the family's luxurious home in Nyali Coast Estate, where palm trees swayed and the ocean breeze carried whispers of status and power. Everyone in the family assumed the massive fortune, properties, shares, and hidden investments, would automatically go to Uncle Samuel and his sons. Zara was just the journalist's niece. No one expected her name to even be mentioned. 2 days later, inside the quiet, polished office of Kilifi Ridge Law Chambers, lawyer Mwangi Otieno adjusted his glasses and began reading the will. The room was filled with expensive perfume, tense faces, and forced tears. Then he paused. "All assets," he said slowly, "will go to Zara Kamau, on one condition." The air felt heavy. Zara's heart skipped. Her uncle's jaw tightened. Her cousin Brian leaned forward. "The condition," the lawyer continued, "is that Zara must publicly reveal a dark family secret during the funeral." Silence. Pure shock. Her relatives didn't look sad. They looked terrified. Zara felt confusion rising inside her, but also curiosity. A secret powerful enough to control a fortune? And why would her aunt trust her with it? The moment the lawyer closed the file, the room exploded into whispers. Chairs scraped the floor. No one looked at Zara with sympathy anymore. They looked at her like she was a threat. Brian Wamboi cornered her first. He followed her out into the hallway of Kilifi Ridge Law Chambers, his expensive shoes clicking fast against the tiles. His voice dropped low, but his eyes were sharp. "You don't even know what you're getting into," he said. "Some secrets are buried for a reason. Don't be stupid, Zara." He stepped closer, invading her space. "Take the money quietly. Say something simple at the funeral. Don't ruin everything." Zara crossed her arms and held his stare. She had interviewed politicians twice his size and criminals far scarier. Still, something about his panic felt different. This wasn't anger. It was fear. Later, Uncle Samuel approached her near the parking lot. His voice was calmer, almost fatherly. "Zara," he said softly, placing a heavy hand on her shoulder, "don't destroy this family." His eyes searched her face, not with love but with warning. "Your aunt was emotional at the end. She didn't mean for you to take this seriously." That was the moment Zara understood something important. They weren't grieving. They were nervous. On her way back to her apartment in Mombasa, the city lights looked different. Her mind replayed every detail. Why would powerful people panic over words? Why would a condition scare them more than losing millions? As she unlocked her door, memories came flooding back. Aunt and Jerry had always treated her differently. While the others laughed at Zara's dream of becoming a journalist, her aunt encouraged it. She would invite Zara to her study, pour her tea, and talk about truth like it was gold. "Never be afraid of facts," she used to say. "Truth protects the brave." Once, when Zara was 19, she overheard a tense argument between her aunt and Uncle Samuel behind closed doors. She never knew what it was about, but she remembered her aunt walking out with tears in her eyes and saying, "One day the truth will speak." Now it all felt connected. As Zara placed her handbag on the table, something slipped out. A cream-colored envelope she hadn't noticed before. Her name was written on it in elegant handwriting. "Zara Kamau. Only to be opened by you." Her heartbeat quickened. The seal was untouched. Whatever her family was afraid of, it was inside that letter. That night, Zara sat alone in her apartment overlooking the narrow streets of Old Town in Mombasa. The distant sound of the ocean mixed with traffic below, but inside her living room, everything felt still. The cream-colored envelope rested on the table in front of her. Her name was written in her aunt's familiar handwriting. Her hands were steady, but her heart wasn't. She slowly broke the seal. The letter was long. The paper smelled faintly of her aunt's perfume. "My dear Zara," it began, "if you are reading this, it means I am gone, and the truth is finally in your hands." Zara swallowed. Her aunt wrote that the family fortune everyone admired was not built honestly. Years ago, when the family business was struggling, someone made a desperate choice. A large amount of money was stolen through financial fraud. Documents were forged. Signatures were faked. Accounts were manipulated. The company survived, but at a cost. Then came the line that made Zara sit upright. The person responsible was never punished. Instead, an innocent employee, someone loyal and hardworking, was blamed. He was arrested, charged, sent to prison. The case was closed quickly and the family name remained clean. Wealth grew, status returned, and everyone moved on as if nothing had happened. Everyone, except Aunt and Jerry. Zara's eyes moved faster now. Her aunt admitted she had discovered the truth too late. She had confronted the real person responsible, but the family chose silence over justice. They protected their name. They protected their power. And they let an innocent man lose everything. Zara felt a chill run through her body. The fear she saw in Brian's eyes. The warning in Uncle Samuel's voice. It all made sense now. The final paragraph was written darker as if pressed harder onto the page. The funeral is not just goodbye. It is the only place where the truth can no longer hide. Justice must be spoken aloud where lies were celebrated. Zara lowered the letter slowly. Her breathing felt heavier. The funeral wasn't about inheritance. It was about exposure. Her aunt didn't just leave her money. She left her a mission. And suddenly Zara understood why she had been chosen. Zara barely slept that night. By morning she had made up her mind. If she was going to stand in front of everyone at the funeral, she needed proof, not just a letter. 2 days later she boarded a bus heading toward the cool green hills of Eldoret Highlands, where the old court records were stored. The journey felt long and quiet. As the city noise of Mombasa disappeared behind her, Zara kept rereading her aunt's letter. One sentence repeated in her mind. The person responsible was never punished. In Eldoret the air was colder, sharper. She went straight to the small government archive building near the old courthouse. Dust covered the shelves. Files were stacked high, some forgotten for years. Zara introduced herself as a journalist researching a closed financial fraud case from over a decade ago. At first the clerk hesitated. "That case?" he asked quietly. "It caused a lot of noise back then." But after hours of waiting and paperwork, the file was finally placed in front of her. Her hands moved carefully as she opened it. There was bank transfers, internal audit reports, signed approvals. Zara's stomach tightened. The signatures on several key documents looked strange. She took photos, zoomed in, compared them to more recent business contracts signed by Uncle Samuel. The difference was subtle but clear enough for a trained eye. The older signatures looked forced, uneven, almost copied, forged. Her pulse quickened. Later that afternoon she tracked down a retired accountant named Kiptu Arap Langat, who had worked for the company years ago. He now lived quietly on the outskirts of town. When Zara mentioned her aunt's name, his expression changed. "I always knew Madame Njeri suspected something," he said slowly. "The numbers never made sense. Money moved too fast. Accounts adjusted overnight. Who really did it?" Zara asked softly. Kiptu hesitated, then sighed. "The one with the most to lose." Uncle Samuel had been head of operations back then. Then came the darkest part. "The man who went to prison," Kiptu added, "was innocent. He begged everyone to look deeper. No one listened." Zara found his name in the file. A former employee, married, 2 children, sentenced for fraud he didn't commit. As the sun began to set over the hills, everything connected. The fear, the threats, the condition in the will. This wasn't just family drama. It was a stolen life. And Zara now had enough pieces to see the full picture. When Zara returned to Mombasa, she felt different, stronger, but also watched. The first anonymous message came that same night. "Stop digging. Some graves should stay closed." She stared at her phone, her heart beating fast but steady. Unknown number. No name. She deleted it. The second message came the next morning. "You think you're brave? You have no idea what you're risking." This time she didn't delete it. She screenshotted everything. By the third message the tone turned darker. "Funerals can be unpredictable." That one made her pause. For the first time fear touched her. Not for the money. Not for the family name. But for her safety. 2 days later Brian showed up at her apartment uninvited. He didn't look angry this time. He looked desperate. "Can we talk?" he asked, forcing a tight smile. Zara didn't invite him in, but she stepped outside into the hallway. Brian lowered his voice. "Let's end this before it gets ugly." He pulled out his phone and showed her a document draft. "We can settle this privately. You take half the fortune. Quietly. We'll transfer assets, properties, whatever you want." Zara stared at him. "In return," she asked calmly, "you say nothing at the funeral. You give a normal speech. Praise Aunt and Jerry. Cry a little. That's it." His eyes searched her face. This doesn't have to destroy us. Destroy us. Zara almost laughed at the irony. An innocent man lost years of his life, she said quietly. That already destroyed something. Brian's jaw tightened. You're choosing strangers over blood? No, Zara replied. I'm choosing truth. For a moment his mask dropped. You have no idea what you're starting, he whispered before walking away. That night, Zara sat alone on her balcony. The ocean breeze carried the sound of waves crashing against the shore. She looked out at the dark water thinking, was it worth it? Exposing the truth would destroy the Womboe family name. Headlines, court cases, public shame. Her own relatives might never forgive her. She imagined the funeral crowd turning against her, politicians whispering, business partners cutting ties. And yet, she also imagined the innocent man sitting in prison, counting days for a crime he didn't commit. Her aunt's final line echoed in her mind. Justice must be spoken aloud where lies were celebrated. This wasn't about revenge. It was about correction. Zara closed her eyes and made her decision. No amount of money could buy silence. And no family name was worth protecting if it was built on someone else's suffering. The funeral was held at the beautiful Karen Hill Gardens in Nairobi. The place looked more like a high-profile event than a goodbye. White tents covered the wide green lawn. Fresh flowers lined the walkway. Black luxury cars were parked in a long shining row outside the gates. Politicians arrived with security escorts. Business leaders stepped out in expensive suits. Cameras flashed as media reporters stood near the entrance. Everyone important in the city seemed to be there. The Womboe family stood together at the front, dressed in coordinated black outfits, pretending to be united. Uncle Samuel shook hands confidently. Brian smiled for photos like nothing was wrong. From a distance they looked powerful and calm. But Zara noticed the small details. The way Brian kept checking his phone. The way Uncle Samuel's hand trembled slightly when he adjusted his tie. The way their eyes avoided hers. Zara stood quietly near the front row. She wore a simple black dress. No heavy jewelry. No dramatic makeup. Just calm focus. But inside her heart was beating fast. Hundreds of eyes were present. And soon they would all be on her. The program began with prayers and soft choir music. Speakers came one by one, praising Aunt Jerry as a generous businesswoman, a community leader, a strong pillar of the family. Every speech felt polished, safe, controlled. Zara listened carefully. They celebrated her wealth, her success, her legacy. But no one mentioned truth. As the final speaker stepped down, Zara felt someone gently tap her arm. She turned. It was the lawyer Mwangi Otieno. He didn't say a word. He just gave her a small, meaningful nod. A reminder. The condition. The master of ceremony adjusted the microphone. And now, he announced, we invite her beloved niece, Zara Kamau, to share a few words. A few words. The microphone felt heavier than she expected when it was placed in her hands. The crowd grew quiet. Even the wind seemed to slow. She could feel the weight of power in that moment. The family name. The fortune. The secret. The innocent man sitting in prison. Her aunt's letter folded inside her purse. Uncle Samuel looked at her steadily. Brian's jaw tightened. This was the point of no return. Zara took a slow breath, stepped forward, and looked at the sea of faces waiting for her to speak. Zara held the microphone with steady hands, even though her heart was pounding. The garden at Karen Hill was completely silent. She began softly. My Aunt Jerry was the bravest woman I ever knew, she said. She believed in hard work. She believed in protecting family. But most of all, she believed in truth. People nodded. Some wiped tears. Her voice was calm, respectful, almost gentle. She taught me that courage is not about power, Zara continued. It is about doing what is right even when it costs you everything. Uncle Samuel relaxed slightly. Brian folded his arms, watching carefully. Then Zara paused. Her tone changed. But today, she said, her voice growing stronger, if we are truly here to honor her, we must honor what she stood for. The crowd shifted. Zara reached into her purse and pulled out a small folder. Years ago, the Womboe family business was involved in financial fraud. Large amounts of money were stolen. Documents were forged. Signatures were manipulated. A loud murmur spread through the audience. She continued clearly, not rushing. The real person responsible was never punished. Instead, an innocent employee was blamed, arrested, and sent to prison. His life was destroyed so that this family's name could remain clean. Gasps broke through the silence. Some guests looked at each other in shock. Reporters immediately lifted their cameras. Phones came out. Recording began. Uncle Samuel's face drained of color. His confident posture disappeared. He looked smaller, exposed. Zara's voice did not shake. I have reviewed the court records. I have compared signatures. I have spoken to former staff members. The fraud was covered up. The truth was buried. Brian suddenly stepped forward from the front row. This is a lie, he shouted. She's doing this for attention. He moved toward the stage, anger written all over his face. But security guards quickly stepped in, blocking him before he could reach her. The crowd gasped again. The scene was no longer a funeral. It was an explosion. Zara raised her voice just enough to rise above the noise. My aunt left me everything on one condition, she said. That I speak the truth publicly where lies were once celebrated. Silence slowly returned. She believed justice must be spoken aloud. The cameras zoomed in. Politicians whispered nervously. Business elites avoided eye contact. Zara looked directly at Uncle Samuel. Today the truth is no longer hidden. And in that moment the powerful Womboe image cracked in front of everyone. The moment Zara stepped away from the microphone, the garden exploded into chaos. Reporters rushed forward, cameras flashing non-stop. Microphones were pushed toward her face. Zara, do you have proof? Are you accusing your own family? Is Uncle Samuel involved? The once peaceful funeral turned into breaking news within minutes. By evening, every major media house in Nairobi was running the story. Clips of her speech flooded social media. The video spread fast, shared, reposted, debated. Some called it the boldest funeral speech in Kenyan history. Others called it a disgrace, but the damage was already done. Within 48 hours, authorities announced they were reopening the old fraud case. Archived documents were pulled again. Financial investigators stepped in. The pressure was too public to ignore now. Uncle Samuel stopped appearing in public. His phone went unanswered. Brian deleted his social media accounts. Business partners began quietly distancing themselves from the Womboe name. Then came the biggest headline. The man who had been imprisoned years ago was officially released while the case was under review. His conviction was suspended pending investigation. News cameras captured him walking out of prison gates, thinner, older, but finally free. Zara watched that clip alone in her apartment. For the first time since the funeral, she cried. But not everything was supportive. Online, the reaction was divided. Some people praised her courage. She chose justice over money, one viral post said. Others attacked her. She destroyed her own blood. Attention seeker, family traitor. Strangers argued about her character without knowing her story. Her inbox filled with both thank you messages and hateful threats. Some warned her to watch her back. Others called her an inspiration to young journalists. The Womboe reputation collapsed almost overnight. Sponsors withdrew. Business deals were frozen. Invitations stopped coming. The powerful image that had stood for years cracked publicly. And there was no fixing it quietly this time. Through it all, Zara stayed calm. She knew this storm would come. Truth doesn't whisper when it arrives. It shakes everything first. Within weeks, the investigation moved faster than anyone expected. Financial authorities traced old transactions, reopened hidden accounts, and followed money trails that had been buried for years. Then the announcement came. Uncle Samuel's private and offshore accounts were officially frozen pending fraud charges. The news channels repeated it all day. The powerful man who once controlled everything could no longer access his own money. This time there were no speeches, no confidence, no control. Shortly after that, the legal condition in the will was declared fulfilled. Zara had publicly revealed the truth, exactly as her aunt requested. The transfer process began quietly but formally. Properties, shares, investments. Aunt and Jerry's entire fortune was now legally in Zara's name. The irony wasn't lost on her. She hadn't fought for the money. She fought for justice. A few days later, Zara traveled to a small town outside Eldoret to meet the man who had just been released. His name was Daniel Mwangi. He looked older than his years. Prison had carved lines into his face, but his eyes were steady. They met in a modest living room at his sister's house. No cameras. No reporters. Just quiet. For a moment neither of them spoke. "Thank you," Daniel finally said, his voice low but sincere. "I thought the world forgot me." Zara shook her head gently. "My aunt never forgot." She explained everything. The letter, the condition, the investigation. Daniel listened carefully, sometimes closing his eyes as if processing years of pain all at once. I lost my job. My friends disappeared. My children grew up visiting me behind glass, he said softly. You gave me back my name. That sentence hit her deeply. Zara placed a folder on the table. Inside were documents setting up financial compensation from her inherited funds. Legal fees, living support, and an education fund for his children. This can't return the years, she said. But it can help rebuild what was stolen. Daniel's hands trembled slightly as he held the papers. He didn't cry loudly. He didn't collapse. But his silence carried heavy emotion. When Zara stepped outside later, the air felt lighter. For the first time since the funeral, her chest didn't feel tight. Justice had started. And this time it wasn't just words spoken into a microphone. It was real. Months passed and life slowly found a new rhythm. Instead of buying luxury cars or moving into a bigger mansion, Zara made a different decision. In the heart of Mombasa, she used a large part of her inheritance to establish the Njeri Wamboi Justice Foundation, a legal aid organization created in her aunt's name. The foundation focused on helping people who could not afford lawyers, especially those wrongfully accused or trapped in long court battles. Word spread quickly. Young law graduates volunteered. Journalists offered support. Families who had lost hope finally had somewhere to go. Zara didn't just expose injustice. She built something to fight it. One afternoon, as she was leaving the foundation office, she saw a familiar car parked outside. Uncle Samuel stepped out slowly. He looked older, tired, nothing like the powerful businessman from months ago. I made mistakes, he said quietly. I was trying to protect the family. Zara listened calmly. He swallowed his pride. I'm sorry. There was a long silence between them. The past could not be erased. The damage could not be undone. Finally, Zara spoke, her voice steady and clear. Truth isn't betrayal. Silence is. Uncle Samuel lowered his eyes. For once he had no argument. That evening, Zara walked alone along the shore at Nyali Beach. The ocean waves rolled in gently, washing over the sand, steady and unstoppable. The same ocean that had watched her grow up now felt like a witness to her transformation. She looked out at the horizon and felt peace. She didn't just inherit property, money, or status. She inherited something far greater. She didn't just inherit a fortune, she inherited courage.